Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of the Caregiver Cup podcast. It's Kathy here. I am so excited that you're viewing this podcast episode today. The title is Stop Believing Everything Your Brain is Telling You. I'm going to talk about those thoughts in your head and the thoughts in your brain and what it's telling you. And then you believe it. And then once you believe it, you automatically think that they're true. And then you start saying it and believing it and doing it, and they just become who you are. I want to tell you right now, my friend, stop. You want to stop those negative thoughts, because once you believe them and they become true, they start forming habits. And what you want to do is you want to stop that so that you can go ahead and shift from that negative space into that positive space and the true space. So if I were your friend and I could read your brain and I could hear what your brain was telling you, I would want to grab your shoulders and I would want to tell you that they are not true. I would say, stop, my friend. They are not true, and start shifting your thoughts and ask you what is really, really true. That's what I would tell you. So I want to break this down today into a few things. I want to break this down by talking about why the brain likes to go ahead and gather all those negative thoughts, and it really all about, it wants to go ahead and protect you. And we're going to talk about that, and it turns into self-sabotage. But I'm going to talk about the whys and the whats and the hows and all of that kind of stuff. Because once you can shift your thinking and realize and recognize what you are doing to yourself and what it's doing, then you can go ahead and really move into the positives. Because, my friend, you are doing great things as a caregiver. You're doing the best you can. And on top of it all, you're in this difficult journey, and you have to embrace what you are doing right. You have to embrace the positives and understand that, yeah, there's going to be difficult times. There's going to be hard times, and you're going to make mistakes. That's just it. I want to pull the elephant right from underneath the rug and just bring that out at you. And so I want to start out with an example today. And let's say you haven't been getting up every day and taking care of yourself, and you want to get into this morning routine where that's the only time you have. And if you get up 15 and 20 minutes earlier and you just go for a speed walk, you're going to feel so much better. So you tell yourself, why can't I get up in the morning and go for a walk? In the past, I used to. Then what you do to yourself, or what I do to myself, is I start beating myself up in my thoughts. And I start saying to myself, I'm lazy, I'm not motivated, I don't care. And then you start believing those things, and then your belief turns into a truth that really isn't true. And you start saying, I hate exercising, I hate being outside, when really is that the root cause? Then those feelings turn into and become kind of who you are, and you start convincing yourself of the truth, or the untruth, and you start saying, it's just too hard right now, I need my rest, I don't feel like it. And you start convincing yourself of these untruths, and your brain loves to do that. And eventually it becomes your habit. Eventually it becomes your action, and you start skipping the walks each day, and you start sleeping more and thinking that's going to happen. But for me, when I was doing that, I would lay in bed and not get up, and I'd turn over and look at my phone or the clock or whatever I had next to me. And then I would say, oh, I'm so lazy. I just need the rest. And then you try to fall back to sleep, and then you're stressing about the day ahead, or you get up and you're beating yourself up for another day of not doing it. It's just this mad, vicious cycle. Instead of saying, well, I got to get up every day, and you're beating yourself up, Well, if instead start with inside of you and start believing it. Maybe you believe you say, I deserve 30 minutes to myself. And the only time I can find is getting up earlier in the morning. You get up and you convince yourself, this is my time. And then you set a system in place that when you start getting into these negative thoughts, you don't have time to think about them. And what I did is I get up, I have everything sitting there. So all I would have to do is get up. And there was even one time where I just slept in my yoga pants and everything. And then I didn't have an excuse. I was already dressed. And then all I had to do is go down, put my shoes on, and walk. And then once you start getting a system in place and prioritizing your stress and health, then you start forming a habit. You start taking smaller steps to going ahead and doing that. As a matter of fact, this morning, it was so windy and I did not want to get up. And as a matter of fact, I let the dogs out. And even then, I kept saying, well, brain, hmm, it's too windy. I'm just going to go ahead and go back to bed. And in my head, my brain was trying to convince me. And I have a process in place when it starts convincing me. I go through this 3-step process in my head. And then, but once you go for a walk, the results are amazing. And you have to keep thinking about what's the end result. I feel good about myself. I feel good right now that I took the time to myself, whatever it would be. Or you can even think about the rewards of your walk along the way. Maybe you get to listen to your favorite music playlist because you don't get to do that any other time during the day. The reason I am so passionate about this topic is it bubbled up over the last few weeks because I am taking this 6-month coaching program from Mel Robbins called Launch. And a shout out to Mel because it's absolutely great. And in the first 6 weeks, it's all mindset work and it's a commitment to go ahead and do this. I'm in my 3rd week and it's so changing me. We have to go ahead and watch a video each day. We don't have to, but I choose to. You watch a video, it's probably less than a half hour, and then you do journal work. That's the first part of it. And then you commit to a project that you're working on, and you have to commit to working on that project for at least 15 minutes. Well, I commit to an hour. And so the first half is Mel's training and the journaling, and then I do 30 minutes of my project work. And it's not a lot of work. And what it's teaching me and it's telling myself in my mindset is how I can improve into a better version of myself. Because when I look back at Caregiving Kathy in 2017 and in 2018, and even last year in 2022, I had all of these negative beliefs and truths, and I believed them and I let them sit inside of my brain. I told myself I was not a good caregiver. Oh, I could fake it like there's nobody else. I told myself I was lazy. I told myself I was numb and it was okay to stay numb. I told myself I felt like my life was over when I thought it. And then I started believing it. And then I started forming habits around it. And if I could do it over again, I wish I had tools in place that could help me embrace what I was thinking, but helping me take in and identifying that these were not true and identifying what things I needed to work on. I'm just checking. Okay. I heard something buzzing on my phone and I'm like, oh, and it's okay. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy how your brain is wired and what it feeds on. And if we go back to the prehistoric days when we were cavemen and cave women, our brain was in protection mode. When it saw danger, it told us to run or it told us to hide or it told us to fight. And our brain is wired that way. And taking Mel's course, you have to identify what it is. And then you have to understand our brain and how it processes everything. And then you have to start thinking and making decisions in the season of your life. And the reason I tell you this is because in difficult seasons, it may be a decision that you have to make that's is going to go ahead and tell you to rest when your brain is going to tell you, why aren't you doing something? And you have to understand that. So you have to play with your brain and really look at the facts and look at it. Well, she used an iceberg model and she gave us permission to use this and share this iceberg model. And so on the screen, you're going to see an iceberg. And the iceberg, if you look at an iceberg and you think of the Titanic iceberg, but you think of an iceberg when you're on the surface and you're looking at an iceberg from the top of the surface, you only see that little piece on the top, right? It's 10% of what the entire iceberg is. There's a huge base and there's a huge structure underneath it. So 10% is seen, but 90% is below the water. Think of how huge that 90% is. It's grounded, it goes deep, and it's solid. That's why the Titanic crashed, and not crashed, but sunk, because of the fact that you didn't see the iceberg until the last possible minute. There was a big base underneath it. Our brain functions that way as well. And most of the time, we only see the 10%. We only see that 10%. Let me share another example of a negative thought and an iceberg analogy. And so think of the base of the iceberg. First of all, I want you to think of the base of the iceberg, that very base. And that base that you hear, I'm going to make sure I'm telling you this right. The base at the bottom is the piece that is chaos, that is, I'm so busy, and that sort of thing. You get that piece. But the tip of the iceberg is the piece that you're telling yourself that you're so busy, right? But then when you go back down to the base, what is it that is so busy? You think about this when you start looking at the base and now your schedule is really busy and caregiving sucks and you don't have any time and energy. And how many times have you told yourself, I can't do this anymore, or my life is over, or I hate my life? Oh my gosh, all of those thoughts and beliefs are on that base. And that's what you're feeling. And that's what you're truly believing is all of those beliefs versus the tip of the iceberg is you frantically doing everything. So let's break it down. So the base is what you believe in, the stories that you're telling yourself. I don't have time. I don't have time. My life is over. I'll no longer be able to be with my friends, whatever you're telling yourself. And then you go one step above it, and that is your support or your systems, or better yet, maybe it's the lack of support. Do you have help or do you not have help? Are you doing everything yourself, or are you sharing some of the wealth with your family, or do you have hired help? You're also the system in place. You might feel burnout. The system in place is you have a chaotic life and your to-do list is like so long and you're trying to frantically pick which ones to do. Or it could be the opposite. Each day is the same and monotonous. I hear words like autopilot from you. Or it could be isolation and feeling lonely. That's the process or the system you have in place. And that feeds off of the stories and beliefs that you're telling yourself. Now, right below the water is the habits and patterns of your behavior. What are you doing? What are you telling yourself? If you're complaining and venting, It's okay to do a little bit, but if it's consistently a habit that you're doing all the time, or you're going to your journal and all you see every day is this world sucks and I hate my life and you're complaining about it all the time, that's the patterns of your behavior right now. It should be something you recognize. I wake up each day, maybe as another one, and you have good intention, but you can't get it all done. Oh, that's me. I'd wake up every day the night before, I'd write my to-do list out, and I'm like, yes, I'm going to get a good night's sleep and I'm going to jump in. I even had times listed in between this, I'll do this, in between this, I'll do that. When I'm at the doctor's appointment while Dennis is getting his chemotherapy, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. But my emotions got in the way, my fatigue got in the way. But or another one might be you're exhausted or you're not motivated and you can't focus. And you'll notice that becomes a pattern. That's the wall you hit from burnout. Or you find yourself crying in the shower. Oh my gosh. Or you're jealous when you look at Facebook or your comparison with somebody else, or you're hating life. Pay attention to the habits or the behaviors that you have in place. So now the tip of the iceberg of all of that is you you and I only feel or see this frustration, anger, resentment, sadness, and you might have incidents or situations where you can reinforce that with, or numbness that you just can't get through and you're just going through the motions, or you've piles of work that you haven't gotten to and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Think about a pile of laundry or the pile of bills or the list of phone calls that you have to make and you just dread it and you keep putting it off. Or or you forget dinner. Maybe that's an example. Been there, done that. Forgot to take out dinner, or you forgot about dinner and you're the last minute you're scrambling, or you're falling asleep in the waiting room. I've had that happen to me. Or better yet, you're working your full-time job or your part-time job and you have to take a mental health day because you're so exhausted so that you can get your sleep or you can catch up. Pay attention to that iceberg, what's happening at the top. But then what the most important piece are all of the pieces underneath it so that you can put it together and see it. First and foremost, my friend, this is normal, especially for you and I as a caregiver. Yet you and I as a caregiver with extreme stress and all those added tasks. And when you start burning out, you can't figure out how to backpedal and get out of it. But today, I want you to think about what you can control and what you can do. And I'm hoping by the end of this podcast episode, you're going to see that what you can do, what you can believe, and what you can work on. Because we can't change everything, but we can control ourselves. We can control our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotions, and even our actions. So I know I said this already, but I'm going to reword it a little bit different. Your brain is a complex organ with intricate wiring and functions. As a matter of fact, your brain is wired to everything. The way our brain processes information and forms belief can be a combination of our biological factors, our psychological factors, and our social factors. When it comes to our negative thoughts and our self-sabotaging beliefs, it and several mechanisms may contribute to the development. I want to talk about these, and I'm just going to fly these on the screen so you can see them. I want to start out with your negative biases. The brain has a natural tendency to prioritize negative information over positive information. I like to think of our brain as it takes in the negative information because it's protecting us, keeping us safe, keeping us calm. And when that negativity starts, it's kind of like building blocks in that side of our brain. And it just keeps building and building and building and making space for it. It responds to threats in the environment. It gets stronger so that it can protect our mental health. And we tend to remember more negative memories than positive memories, and those seem to flood back faster, which obviously that's why people have trauma and PTSD and triggers. That's the whole thing. Another one is the brain forms neural pathways through repeated patterns of thinking and behaviors. So that's why when we start recognizing what's happening, and then we start thinking about it, and then that negative thought becomes a belief, and then we reinforce it with negative truths. That becomes that behavior, and it strengthens and strengthens and strengthens. This process is known as neuroplasticity, which reflects the brain's ability to adapt and recognize itself based on the experiences that we have. Another one is cognitive distortions. They're patterns of biases, bias thinking that I can't speak, that can contribute to negative thoughts and self-sabotaging. And think about a catastrophic event. You think about a catastrophic event happening, and it might not even be you, but think about maybe there's somebody in your city that has had a bad fire in their home, or they had a flood in their basement. And now you start thinking about what potentially could happen to you, and your brain just keeps going and going and going. Or better yet, you read Google, and I had like a hair in my head here. Based on your Googling, you see the negativity in the Googling of your loved one's condition, and you start thinking about that condition, and you start going down this rabbit hole that isn't even true. But you potentially think of, oh my God, this is going to happen. Oh my God, this is going to happen. And it may, but it may not. And why are you going down that and using up all of your emotional energy on that negative thinking? Or better yet, maybe your past experiences or your conditioning taught you to do that. Our early life experiences may have had trauma or criticism or neglect or situations where something went wrong. And so now you think that way all the time, or you're trained as a responder to go ahead and utilize that. And so it may require you to do extra work and condition yourself to pull out of that and shape your own beliefs and your own perceptions of things. And then the last one that I want to talk about when it comes to negative thoughts and self-sabotaging is when it's self-fulfilling prophecies. When individuals hold negative beliefs about themselves, like we do, they may engage in behaviors that align with those beliefs and create self-fulfilling prophecies. And for example, if you've always failed at maybe taking a math test or an algebra test, you just start believing that, and everything that you do reinforces that. How many times have you had said, I'm not techie? I'm not good at tech. I suck at tech, the technical pieces. Well, you start believing that versus, no, I'm technically challenged, but I learn each day how to learn something. I'm at phase 2 of my technical challenges, and I'm getting better each day. Think about how you can go ahead and do that. I was listening to a podcast. Amy Porterfield is in the entrepreneur space, and she was talking about strengths and beliefs. I have strengths and weaknesses, I mean. And she had said, we always focus on our weaknesses instead of looking at our weaknesses as a gift. And right away I came to it, and maybe I'm emotional. And or I have soft feelings. Well, instead of thinking, oh my gosh, she's a crier and she's going to do that all the time, instead of saying that about yourself, what about saying you're passionate? You're passionate. And then your strengths are you can process things and you can recognize, and you're very empathetic. Well, you're passionately empathetic, and that's not bad. And so that might be, or if you're like a deep thinker, people might say, well, she's going to overthink that. No, you're a deep thinker and you think of all of the details so that you can be more successful. I just wanted to throw that out there because we are so hard on ourselves, which leads me to the next piece. Why, as women, do we feel like we are not doing enough? We are not doing enough as a caregiver. And I just want to throw out these 6 points here and really hit them pretty fast. But I want you to reflect on these a little bit. And I want you to ask yourself if you have one of these or if you fall into all of these categories, ask yourself why. Do you hold yourself to high expectations? The high expectations maybe before you were a caregiver. Are you being a perfectionist and expecting yourself to do everything right and think of everything and ask all of the right questions and be on time for everything and doing everything? I'm going to tell you, my friend, that's BS. That's BS. Stop holding yourself to every single highest expectations even in this difficult time, because it's not possible. You have to go ahead and give yourself grace. You have to say, this is new waters that I'm going through, and I don't know what this is going to be like. Are you comparing yourself to others? As a caregiver, each one of us are different. Each one of us are in a different situation. Each one of us are dealing with different dynamics of our loved ones and different financial situations and different environmental situations. We're all very different. And if you're comparing yourself to a friend or somebody else, then they're not a caregiver. And you can't expect to be this happy, perfect person when you are going through the hardest times of your life right now. Or are you saying I'm not doing enough and you're emotionally exhausted? Yeah. If you're emotionally exhausted, I want you to take a step back and look at where you're putting your energy. If I was coaching you right now, and if you want to be coached, go out to kathylvan.com/coaching and we can get a free session in, and then we can determine if I'm the right fit for you. But if you're emotionally exhausted, I'm going to ask you, list out everything that's taking up your time right now. And what is taking up all of your energy right now? We're going to list out all of those energy suckers. And we're going to go ahead and saying, is there other alternatives? Do you have to do it all? How can you prioritize? And then do you have this mindset that you have to sacrifice yourself? Are you in this martyr people pleasing? Oh my gosh, I am so guilty of it. And I know I did it. And it caused me so much stress, like my hand raised on the screen. It caused me so much stress. It caused me so many health issues and mental issues. I gotta lower my hand here once. That I did. I did for the longest of time. And now, as a friend to you, as a coach to you, as a coach on the Caregiver Cup Circle, we talk about that. Oh, excuse me. I got so excited. And are you not getting external validation and appreciation? Because as caregivers, we don't get enough. We don't get enough. So are you doing more so that you get that validation? Are you looking to go ahead and please even more? Versus you have to look inside within. And if you need somebody to go ahead and validate and appreciate you, it has to start with you. And then you have to find a community of caregivers. And if you're looking for a community that will support and lift you up, First of all, go out to Facebook and look for the Caregiver Cup podcast online community. That's free. Or you can join the circle, the Caregiver Cup Circle, which meets twice a month and we lift each other up. Or are you real? Or do you have unrealistic expectations and you are criticizing yourself because of them? Oh my gosh, I'm guilty of all six. I at I don't know if they were all at the same time, but all six of them I'm guilty of. So I want you to ask yourself, why do you feel you are not good enough? If you journal, I want you to put that in your journal and do that as your next journal entry. And then flip the page over and saying, how can I improve that? One baby step at a time. So then add on top of it how you feel when you think about you're not good enough. What are those emotions, first of all? And then what are those emotions that you believe, thoughts and your beliefs, and then you start really believing them? Shame, guilt, worry. Those are the ones that come to my mind right away. I used to worry about what people would think if they saw me out getting a pedicure or they saw me out having lunch with a friend. Well, she isn't. Or I'd feel shame or I'd feel guilty. Yes. So I want you to really kind of focus in on that. Okay. It's essential to recognize that these beliefs are not necessarily accurate reflections of your reality. Caregiving is demanding. You know this stuff. It's a demanding role, and we tend to neglect our needs by providing care to others first, and we start comparing ourselves to others. We start setting all of those unrealistic expectations and personal limitations, and they become the beliefs and thoughts that we hold true. And then we start believing it, doing it, and living it. It's not about being perfect. We need to go ahead and start working towards stop being and questioning the sacrifices, and stop thinking about that. You have to be your best version of yourself to be a caregiver. It does not mean that you give up your entire life. You have to keep thinking about yourself so that you can go ahead and show up to the game fully prepared and ready to go ahead and perform. I am personally looking back, like I said, I don't regret it, but I'm looking back and I can pinpoint the times in my life where I wasn't healthy. And then when I look and uncover it even further and pull the elephant from underneath the rug, I see where my negative thoughts turned into beliefs. And then my beliefs turned into untruths, and my untruths turned into the habits and action that I did. And I can see the tip of the iceberg. That was when I wasn't healthy. And then I have to work myself down. So in Mel's coaching program, we watched a video each day, like I said, and we had to journal in this workbook. And I wanted to read something really personal, really raw. And I question it still to this day, telling it. But if I'm going to be my authentic self to you, I think I need to share what I uncovered underneath the iceberg. And it's related to caregiving, but it goes deeper than that. One of the questions in that journal entry that we had to do was, what are some beliefs about myself that I'm holding on to? And I felt like I was in a therapy session. Here it is. I'm going to read it here. I've doubted myself for years because I don't have a college degree. Yeah, I'm saying it. I had to prove myself over and over again in corporate America. I worked for a Fortune 50 company, and I've done the same thing that everybody that had a degree done, if not better. But I still did not get paid, and I wasn't given the opportunities because I didn't have a degree. I went to the school of hard knocks. I chose to be a very young mom. I started at the age of 18, and I worked my ass off. I went and got certifications. I did as much schooling as I could during that time. I've succeeded the hard way. And I am a student and professor of life and a professional learner for my life. And I continue to learn and continue to go ahead and take these coaching programs and these classes. My parents told me, and I love my parents. First of all, I want a disclaimer. I love my parents. They did the best that they can. They taught me what they could, but they told me I was not smart enough and disciplined enough to go to college. Yeah, there was a lot that I can attest to and that at the surface that they could see. Fast forward, so my whole caregiving journey was to prove to them that I was committed, that I was smart, and that I was dedicated. It puts lots of thoughts in my head, and that now I look back in and think, I can't believe I believed that. Still to this day, I worry about what people will say in this podcast episode, in my business, in my life. Is she an expert? Is she smart? Is she knowledgeable? Should they do business with Kathy? I still do that. And I want to tell you this because it's perfectly normal. What's not normal is to stay in it and have actions to believe it and not moving forward. And so I'm on my 162nd podcast episode, and I'm going to keep going. And people can choose to stay with me, people can choose not to stay with me. And so now for you, I want to read first of all. First of all, there's one more piece here. Now, this was very, very hard for me to do, to be raw and honest with myself, but it made me uncover the onion and really look at my thoughts and beliefs. It made me look underneath that water. And I want that for you. When you start feeling something or you notice yourself doing something, or you look like you're disengaged, or you have an angry blowout, that's normal. But then once you can process it, I want you to write down that iceberg. And that's what we're going to do right now. I want to show you how to do that, because once you can step into and get the insights of that 90%, you can so much gain information about yourself. I know now why I push myself to this day. I know my habits and behaviors around my beliefs. I know why I don't ask for help. I know why. And it's just like a light bulb went on. So here's the iceberg. I'm not going to stay here anymore. And I don't want you to. I pulled out this iceberg and I took the courage to do it. And I took the courage to lean into the whys and move away from my negative beliefs and my negative thoughts. And to be honest with you, it brought up and bubbled up a lot of emotions. And so here's what you're going to do. And I want to encourage you to do this. I want you to think of a negative belief or an action or a behavior that you had, or patterns of behavior. And I want you to draw this iceberg. I'm showing you this on the screen here. And then I want you to go ahead and do, what are my beliefs? What are my stories? I want you to look at that bottom piece and write it in. Take some time to write it in. What are the systems or no systems, or support or no support? I want you to do it. Don't worry about if they're not exactly where they should be. I just want you to be working on that 90%. And then what are your habits or patterns of behavior that you're currently doing? For example, if I'm sleeping all the time and I believe I need rest because I'm sleeping all the time, and I could go ahead and say the beliefs there. I believe that I need my rest and I'm not feeling well and I have a busy day tomorrow and blah, blah, blah. And then the systems in place is I'm not getting anything done. I'm not asking for help. So the sleep is going to keep continuing. And then my habits and patterns of behavior is I'm sleeping 15 hours a day. I can't stay awake. I'm drinking caffeine, whatever it would be. Then the tip of the iceberg is what? You see yourself sleeping all the time. You're not happy. You're sad. You're isolated. That might be an example. What's your tip of your iceberg? And then now, after you do that, pause the video, do that, or write this down, hit the pause right now. And then I want you to come back and draw the same triangle or the same iceberg, thinking of something positive. You're going to get up every morning and walk. That's the action. But what are the beliefs? What are the systems that you're going to put in place? What's going to be your pattern of behavior? And what are you going to go ahead and tell yourself and do? And then the pattern is, I have energy. I walk every day. So I want you to be aware of this and recognize this. It's not easy. It's not. But once you can recognize it and make sense of it, you can stop beating yourself up. You can stop beating yourself up if you are a people pleaser, or if you are eating comfort food. You have to figure out why you're eating comfort food, or why you are, for me, why I gained 30 pounds. I have to figure that out. And most of the time you can figure it out up here. Most of the time you're going to have to dig deep. This is your first step. And once you do that, then you can start working on options to being a better you. And it might take 10 times, but each time you're going to start working on it. Well, my friend, I would love to hear from you. I would love to see your triangle. I would love to see your iceberg. I would love to see and hear about what thoughts you're telling you. If you need somebody to tell you and challenge you, are these really true? Or if you need somebody to say, you're human. This is part of being a caregiver. It sucks. But you know what? You can choose and you can make shifts. Love you. We'll talk to you soon. As always, this is one piece to go ahead and fill your cup and keep your cup full. Because once you can go ahead and recognize that filling your cup is important and making sure your cup is filled with the right stuff, then you can go ahead and live the best life that you can live as a caregiver and come out of this caregiving experience being proud of what you do. We'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.